Hello, everybody. My name is Roberto Diaz. I've been living in the beach community of Coronado for about 10 years. My idea here today is to actually get you to know whether Coronado is for you. So I want to give you the whole version of the pros and cons of the area. I think that's one of the things that makes a big difference when you guys are considering whether to come to this part of Panama or even if Panama is for you at all. I was born in Panama in 1971, and I lived abroad for many years. So different places from Sweden to Venezuela, and of course in the United States, in Hawaii, California, Louisiana, Tennessee, Georgia. And I know what it's like to feel a little scared about moving to a place. That's why I'm taking the time to make sure that you guys have the information that you need to make the right choice. Coronado is a wonderful, sleepy little surf town. If you're looking for like a big party scene, this is not really it. The restaurants here close pretty much by like 10. On the weekends, you may have a place open till about midnight or so. It's more about the beach activities, the lifestyle. The people here are just, nature people. There's a lot of hiking. We have a group that goes out swimming, that prepares for triathlons. There's a ton of different options for outdoorsy people, but not really a big party scene. However, that's one of the reasons that I really loved the Coronado area, was because we were actually just about an hour and 15, 20 minutes, depends on traffic, from the city. Panama City is a wonderful choice for if you want to party, if you want to go see the Van Gogh exhibit that's going on right now, or different museums, operas, even a whole bunch of restaurant choices over there. It doesn't, over here in Coronado, we don't have that crazy traffic that you experience over there, the lifestyle of the city, which is, a little more high tempo, hectic, everybody's honking, that kind of stuff. I loved it when I was younger, in my 20s, but not anymore. Now I kind of want more of this relaxed beach lifestyle. Coronado was founded in 1941. The golf course was built, I believe, in 73. It's an 18-hole golf course, and it's the center of Coronado. All the people from the city would come on the weekends. In Panama City, there were really no beaches that were attractive to most of the Panamanians. Coronado is bordered by Gorgona on one side, Punta Barco on the other, and then it's on the Pacific Ocean with the Inter-American Highway right in the middle. This is the same Inter-American Highway that people can take all the way from Alaska out here. Now, the Inter-American Highway stops in Panama, just past Panama City in the Darien province. That's where it stops. If you actually wanted to drive all the way to South America, you have to get on a ferry and go around. So I chose Coronado because it had that beach lifestyle that I was looking for. I'm an avid surfer. It's one of my biggest passions, and it has been since I was a kid. I've been working here in the area for over 10 years. It's a place I love. I love that I'm able to go up to the mountains in about 25 minutes, 30 minutes. There's great hiking, rivers, waterfalls, tons of very safe trails that I can go with my daughter and my son, know that I'll be completely fine. There are so many beaches to enjoy up and down the coast. Coronado is not only Coronado, really. It's like the aggregate of all the beach communities in the area. Okay, so there's San Carlos, there is Gorgona, there is Punta Barco, there is all the other places that are also very similar to Coronado in that there are like resort communities with golf. If you're a golfer, this is a great place to be because you actually have about 5 or 6 golf courses in the area that are within 45 minutes, okay? There is the Cameron, Buenaventura, Vistamar, Bijao, all of these, Casamar. There's so many different golf courses, and this is, very short distance from here. All of these are beach and golf resorts. I am definitely not a golfer. I hit balls every once in a while on the driving range, and there is a really nice driving range here in Coronado, which I understand has lights, so you can actually play and practice at night if you wanted to when it's cooler. Talking about temperatures, the temperatures year-round are very comfortable. Here's like what the average is like. They're very warm. I actually think it's quite funny. I used to surf in California quite a bit, and for me, in Southern California, it was quite cold. I mean, the water would get into the 50s in the winter. For the Northern California people, it was like, oh, that's not cold at all. And here in Panama, normally the water temperature is like 82 degrees, and when it drops to about 78, people are bringing out wetsuits because it feels so cold. But that's just because the air is so warm. Okay, one of the things that a lot of people do not tell you about Coronado is the following. We have some of the most amazing, beautiful homes, multi-million, tens of millions. We have some of the worst roads in the area, and that is a particular story of why it became that way. So back in the 70s, when the Coronado was starting to be developed, what ended up happening was there was no legal entity to establish an HOA. That hadn't been developed in Panama yet. It was more of like a handshake deal where you would tell the developer, hey, okay, I'm going to agree to pay you, whatever it was back then, $5, $10. With time, obviously, that the fees increased over the decades. And at some point, someone stopped paying. And then someone found out that one of his neighbors weren't paying. And then another person, hey, that person wasn't. They're not paying, I'm not paying. It snowballed into nobody's paying. It's little by little, what ended up happening was people stopped paying altogether. And nowadays, the developer bears the brunt of fixing the roads. Now, there's a couple of ways that they actually get money in to fix some of the roads, and they kind of patch it up, and that is through the gate system at the front. So Coronado has a 24-hour, 7 days away security access gate. If you want to go on the fast lane, you need to pay a yearly fee to get a little pass. That's how they get money for the road. And so that's why the roads are the way they are. If you can see, you can have a very nice patch of road, extremely nice patch of road in certain areas, and then all of a sudden, you deviate and you make a left turn, and then it goes into this awful road. It's some of the roads are like rocks and pebble and dirt, but some of the other roads were actually paved decades ago, and they have just broken down. So there's pieces of cement here and there. It's one of the worst things about Coronado is the roads. Not a lot of people discuss that, but it is the reality. What you have to do is basically do this. If you plan to live in Coronado, do what most of us do. Get an SUV. If you drive a normal sedan, the roads will tear up your suspensions and tires constantly. It doesn't necessarily have to be a 4x4, but if you get an SUV, you'll be fine. But not all the roads are like that, although I will say that on the main highway, on Highway 1, the one that I was talking about, which is the Inter-American, you can find some potholes that will, if you got one of those mini cars, it might just disappear into that pothole. You can ask any of the expats, they'll tell you, yes, you got to be very careful on the highway because you got to just be on the lookout for some of these potholes. This is one of the realities of Panama. The roads are not amazing. They are what they are. That brings me to another point. A lot of people that I meet here that tell me, hey, people have told me, you know what, I have, they've told me that everybody speaks English in Panama. That is not true. Although if you go, for instance, to see a doctor, the majority of the doctors will speak English, but that doesn't mean every single one of them, especially depends where you are. So if you're in the city, the majority of doctors will probably speak English. The further away you go from the city, the less likely that the doctor will speak English. The same thing goes for like attorneys. Like a lot of attorneys speak English, but not every single one. And for instance, if you're here in the area of Coronado, the people at the grocery stores or the gas station that work those type of jobs, they will not speak English. Their main language is Spanish. And I know a lot of people that have moved here over the years that don't speak a word. Well, I'm not going to say a word, but they speak very few words of Spanish. And it's all about their attitude. us as Panamanians, if we see you trying, we're gonna help you out. We're gonna do the best to understand you. Honestly, we don't wanna see is what I've seen a couple of years ago, and that was somebody at the store yelling at a cashier at the top of her lungs, going, "Why don't you speak English?" And, it's just going to be frustrated for a person like that to come here to Panama because not everybody's going to speak English. So keep that in mind when you come. Your attitude in learning Spanish will take you a very long, long way. One of the other issues that comes up quite a bit is how much can I live in Panama for? Like, I've heard certain companies tell people that are coming to Panama, "Oh, you can live like a king for $1,000. Well, that is very relative, okay? There are restaurants here that are just as expensive, and if not more expensive than some of the places in United States, Europe, Canada. If you go dining out every day to these restaurants, of course they're not, you're not gonna keep a small budget per month. However, if you do live like a lot of Panamanians, like how we live, as in, for instance, I go out 2 to 3 times per week to what is called a fonda. Okay, a fonda is a mom and pop restaurant where they have some simple choices. Okay, so basically you will always have rice and beans, and this is how it was for me growing up. It was like there was rice and beans cooking, and then my mother would say, "Okay, so what are we having for lunch?" And then they would choose whether it was chicken, beef, fish. And that's how it is here. When you go to the fonda, the rice and beans is already included. You may have an option of a different type of rice and bean, just like a mix called arroz con guandú. But normally you will have rice and beans, whether it's lentils, red beans, black beans, some type of bean, and rice, and then your choice of meat. So when you go to a fonda, okay, and this is an important part, and I feel a lot of foreigners don't go to fondas because just they don't know how to order. And that is, you go over there and you just ask for, what do you have? Meat, fish, and that's it. It's a very simple menu, but that menu it can vary from about $4 to $5.50 to $6 at most. If you live like that, then of course your money's gonna stretch out a lot more, because you can take 4 people out to eat for $25. So it depends how you spend your money. That is like, for instance, going to the grocery store. I had somebody that told me, "Oh my God, prices here in Panama are ridiculously expensive in the grocery stores." Well, for one, if you go to a specialty grocery store and you buy peanut butter that's made in the US, it's gonna have a premium price because it was imported. However, if you buy, for instance, your groceries, like most of us do, most Panamanians, we buy our groceries at the grocery store, and then our fruits and vegetables at the fruit stand, it makes a huge difference. And yes, I get peanut butter, but I get it from PriceMart, which is actually, for those from North America, is basically Costco. If you go and you know where to buy certain things, you can keep it quite inexpensive. That brings me to another subject. I want you to make sure, okay, this is, for me, it's very important that you don't get overcharged for things. Well, watch this little clip here.
How much? 100. No. 50. No. Okay. 10.
Okay, so what you want to make sure is that you investigate a little bit before you go. Like, know that pineapples are not $10. You may have $2, $3, or even $4 pineapples, but they're not 10. Everything you do, just investigate a little bit about the pricing. And this happens, look, it happens even to me. I bought land in the Azuero Peninsula years ago, and what was recommended to me by my godfather, who's a very knowledgeable businessman, he said, "Roberto, take somebody over there that is actually from the area and have him do the negotiation, because what they're gonna see is a city boy, and I wasn't even born in the city. I was born in Chiriquí, best part of Panama." This is the same thing. Okay, by me taking this guy from the area, letting him do the negotiation, like I got a much better price. Now, of course, you're not gonna be able to do that every time you go out and buy fruit, but just make sure that you know how much it is and ask before you purchase. How much is this? How much is that? If you ask afterwards, after they've rounded up all the fruits, the price is gonna increase. So there's just little things you gotta get used to. Panama is gonna be very different from what you know. There's so many huge differences. For instance, from my friends in Europe, I have one of my best friends is from Sweden. I live there and I go visit him, and I remember him telling me, oh my gosh, what a nightmare it is to cut one tree out of his property that is blocking his whole view. He says it's basically impossible. Plus, if he gets all his neighbors to agree, then he's got to pay an astronomical price to the local government to cut this one tree. That is not the case in Panama. If you purchase a lot and you want to cut down a bunch of trees, as long as they are not endangered, you're able to do it with minimal government permission, very small fees, and the promise that you replant as many trees as you cut down. This is one of the benefits of Panama. You have this freedom here in the area to do certain things, but there are gonna be things that you're not gonna be used to. Like there are certain people, and I don't recommend at all that you do this, but people do it all the time. They build houses without even getting any permits. There's a lot of things like this that happens that is gonna be different from where you're from. One of the things in the area that can be a little bit challenging is customer service. There's a story of a client that I had years ago that called me very upset because she had emailed her lawyer at 8 in the morning and it was almost noon and she hadn't heard back from him. I told her, ma'am, Panama might not be for you, because if somebody not answering your email in 4 hours gets you very flustered and upset, Panama's not for you. The reality of Panama is that you will actually make an appointment with a plumber or with a cable company, and they will tell you, I'll be there at 8, and it might be 5 p.m. when they actually arrive. That is just one of the things that happens if they actually arrive. I deal with that, as many of us Panamanians do, which is whenever I make an appointment with somebody, let's say it's a plumber, I will call them the day before and say, hey, you're still coming tomorrow, right? And then the day of, I will call him again and say, I expect you in an hour. And then that's how I make sure I keep track of time. You don't take the time for granted. You don't assume that they're actually gonna be on time. I tend to assume the opposite. I assume they're not gonna be on time. And then if they are, it's a blessing, it's great. But I always try to stay on top of that. And if you manage it that way, then you're gonna be okay and you're gonna flow with it. Otherwise, if you're like, if you keep a very strict, let's say Scandinavian time schedule or English time schedule where you want to be there by the minute, if you have a strict adherence to time, like time is super important, and people being late for an appointment upset you extremely, like just makes you bonkers, Panama might not be for you. One of the things that you might find a little different here is that in Panama, we do not have street addresses. Well, there's actually some places that do, but the majority don't. I've actually seen electric bills that say, past the mango tree, around the corner, to the right. And that's the address for that particular place. What we do is we have a different type of system in order to get, for instance, things from Amazon. So I have a P.O. box, or I have a company, there's several in the area that provide this type of service, and they actually ship the things to an address in Miami and then bring them by courier here. Never ever send anything via United States Postal Service or your regular postal service and expect it to get here. It has to be through some of the big companies, FedEx, UPS, DHL, that kind of thing, because it won't get here. So that is definitely one of the things that a lot of people find amazing about Panama is we don't have street addresses and we don't have a functioning postal service. In closing, I will say Coronado and the beach areas might be for you if you like a relaxed environment, okay? If you like the high tempo of the city, then perhaps Panama City might be for you. Also, there are areas in Panama that have much cooler weather. Although I do like the weather out here, and most people do, there are places, if you prefer to be a little cooler, you can go up the mountains. But for those people that are looking for near the beach, warm area, slow lifestyle, kind of like a country lifestyle, this might be the place for you. Thank you for your time.